All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Kane, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Wonderware, California. Thank you for attending our Learn in 30 webinar today focused on Enterprise and Redundant Historian. After the webinar this morning, we will be doing a short Q&A, so please type any questions or comments into the Q&A box, the chat box, or you can email us at webinar@california.wonderware.com. Now I'd like to introduce your presenter for today's webinar, Tan Nguyen. Tan is the Wonderware California product specialist in Southern California. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tan. Good morning, Tan.
Good morning, Kelly. Thank you for the introduction.
Of course.
All right. So as Kelly mentioned, my name is Tan Nguyen, and I'm the Wonderware product specialist for Southern California. I'm here today to walk you through the concept and the setup process for our enterprise and redundant historian. So this is our agenda for today. I'll be going through a quick introduction to Wonderware California, who we are, what we do, and then talk about the concept behind Wonderware Enterprise and Redundant Historian. Then I'm going to jump into some hands-on fun in setting up the historian, and you get to see that live. So let's get started with Wonderware today. Well, we are present in about 1/3 of the world's plants with over 750,000 licenses installed all over the world, making us the #1 HMI on the market. And there are a couple of reasons that contribute to that. First of all, it's because we are the lowest risk SCADA solution with 30 years of seamless migration, allowing you to take an application from 30 years ago and run it on the current Windows 10 or Windows Server 2016 platform. We are also easily scalable, taking a small operation and growing it incrementally as the business requires, with add-on functional capabilities like MES, OEE, workflow, quality control, and many others. On top of that, Wonderware also provides local and global support, being backed by Schneider Electric and over 3,500 system integrators worldwide. So where does Wonderware California fit into all this? Well, we have been providing local application consulting and industry expertise for over 25 years now, which gives you access to reliable industrial automation experience that can really help you accomplish your objective. We also provide professional IT services to help you get your project started. So if you don't have the bandwidth to make it happen, we'll help you out. We will build servers and computers with Wonderware pre-installed as well as virtualized and high availability systems. And if you're looking for help on turnkey projects or programming, we have over 120 system integrator partners to help address that need as well. We have 2 local offices here, one in San Francisco, one in Irvine. So stop by and visit us when you get the chance. We also hold training and free hands-on getting started workshops at these locations. You can find more information about the schedule and how to register on our website at california.wonderware.com. Now, we wouldn't be here where we are today without our support team. They are located in California, so there's no waiting, no voicemail, and no communication confusion when you call. Here's a picture of the 4 guys that make up the amazing local support team, so you can put a face to the name. So before we get started on redundant and enterprise historian, let's talk about what is a Wonderware historian. Well, it is much more than just a simple data storage system. Our historian has the ability to go much further with your industrial data than just simple storage and retrieval. It can take everything from statistical summaries and cycle time analysis to help improve decision-making in your business operations. It is able to give you the ability to also have data redundancy, so that you can protect yourself against unforeseen disaster, and we will demonstrate how that's done later in the demo. Our historian can also be expanded to multiple tier historian, capable of storing data locally and replicating that same data or a summary of it to the corporate level to simplify the most demanding data reporting and analysis requirements. So with built-in data validation procedures and powerful query capabilities, you can manage your business with the peace of mind that your data will always be there to back you up. So when we talk about redundant historian, we are really talking about a partner historian running side by side with each other to back up data simultaneously all the time. The engine is the main driver of the data, sending data to both historians at the same time to ensure that the data is duplicated exactly. This way, even if one of your historians goes down for some reason, the second one is ready to step in and take over the work with the exact same data. Sorry about that. Aside from local and redundant historian, we also have the next level, which is the Wonderware Historian Enterprise. As you can see here with this drawing, Historian Enterprise is a Tier 2 system that's capable of receiving replicated data from the local historian and storing it into one centralized historian accessible to you. This can also easily expand to 2 or 3 enterprise historians as well as multiple local historians. It just depends on what you need. Here's an example of an enterprise historian architecture. So the first question you probably have looking at this model is, what does it mean? Well, this model shows 2 separate domains here, a business and a SCADA network. So you have one-way arrow here in the middle showing that the communication is pushed to the business domain and not being pulled. The process makes sure that storage is completely independent of retrieval. This allows you to receive data without compromising the control layer and without any knowledge of where the data is coming from or what the credential is for the source. The one-way DMZ layer also helps to prevent any kind of communication or request to come through from the business domain to the SCADA domain, which also means you can't make any changes to the control network using the corporate network. Data is pushed up at your set interval, giving you the ability to control how much or how often the business network receives the data. But once the data is there, it's always available at your fingertips. Security is also a big feature here as well because we use encryption, credit card encryption level security so that your data is secure both in motion and at rest. And that's it for the short introduction to Wonderware Historian. Now I'm going to jump into the demonstration portion to show you how to set up the system. For the demonstration here, I have a couple of different VMs set up to be able to, one, do a redundant historian setup and then an enterprise historian setup. So I have my historian 1, historian 2 VM here for the 2 redundant historians, and then an enterprise historian VM as well. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to set up a partner historian or a redundant historian. And setting up the redundant historian is a very simple and easy to do process. So the first thing you would have to do is you would be able to set up historizing of data inside the app engine. So within my Orchestra IDE here, as you can see, I already have my app engine historizing data, and the data is right now currently being historized to my historian 1. So the same VM that's running the application is also historizing data. Just open that up to show you. And then you would jump into the system management console here and use the console to set up the historian for redundancy. So within the configuration editor of the historian configurations, there is a parameters tab here. And within the parameters, you can set up, there's an option called historian partner. So historian partner, if you double click on this, gives you the ability to set up a value for the historian partner. So within this value, you can put in an IP address for the partner or where the node's located, or you can put in the name of that. In this case, I put in the name for the VM to make it easier. So right now it's saying that, hey, this is, you have a partner and his name is historian 2. So historian 1 knows that it has a partner called historian 2. So what it does is it will tell the application server that it has a partner. And then the application server will say, okay, I'll send data to the historian 1. At the same time, I'm going to send the same data to historian 2. At this point, once you set up the name, you can put a description in it. If you have multiple machines and you get confused, you can put a description of where that is or what the historian is. So at this point, I would jump into the second historian. And over here on the second historian, I would do the same thing. Go into system configuration parameters. And then, as you can see here, I have a partner historian, and that is historian 1. Once you make any changes, make sure you commit the pending changes to apply them. So just to show you that we're getting the same data, I have my trend line here. I have a couple of tags that I'm historizing at the moment, one of which is the reactor tag. You can see here, let me auto scale it. I have live data right now running. So this is for the last 5 minutes. It's recording data. That's on my first historian, the local one. And then now I have my secondary historian, where if I jump into my trend tool here, I can also pull up the same tag and have the same data that is being duplicated. So as you can see, setting up a partner historian is very simple. Now, the one thing that I do want to clarify with partner historian is that both of these historians are running at the same time. They're not on a standby phase. They're always active. So you will have 2 historians running constantly, and then the app server engine would send data to both historians at the same time. So if one goes down, you have instantly right away the same exact data on the secondary historian. If you apply, now since the control is done with the app engine in terms of sending data, if you make changes to the first historian, like you go in here and you add a tag, those tags will not be applied to the second historian because the historians themselves do not communicate. So make sure if you're going to make changes to both historians, so that way you will have the exact data replicated. Okay, so that's pretty much it for partner historian. Very simple setup. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is enterprise historian. And this has to do, once you talk about enterprise historian, we're talking about data replication. And setting this up is actually also very simple. However, the implications and the uses you can have for it is countless. So I'll talk about some of the cases and some of the things that you can do with replicated data, or summary data is what we also call it. So setting this up, I'll talk about that first. So there's a couple of different ways you can set up, well, there's one way you can set up replication. But you can set up a replication within also the system management console. So under replication, you have replication servers. So as you can see here, I've already done a setup for my historian enterprise, which I call historian ET as a computer name. So within that, you have a couple of different folders, one for simple replication and one for analog and state summary replication. I'll talk about those in a bit. But in order to set up a replication server, it's very easy. All you have to do is right-click on the folder for replication server, add a new replication server, and I'm actually going to create one replication server called historian 2, which was our partner already done in historian. You can also specify username and password for that. And then one of the key things that you can also do, as I mentioned in my slide, data from a replicated historian travels only one way. So it travels from the local to the business network. That is crucial because here, what you can do is you can set up a TCP port. And this could be any number that you put in. I mean, they'll give you a default number when you set it up, but you can change this number to whatever you like. And that will allow you to open up a one-way port just with that, through that connection, and giving you the ability to send data through that port only. So that way, you don't get people that try to, hack your connection using the standard port that everybody uses. So you can customize the port through that. This also keeps, it keeps independent. It keeps retrieval independent from, storage as well. So the people on the business network cannot mess with your data on the local network. So from here, you can test the connection to make sure that you're getting data and that the port is open and you can send data up to the secondary enterprise historian. And the connection test takes a few moments here. But you also have the option to also replicate online if you have historian insight as well. So as you can see here, test connection succeeded. So at this point, you would just click next. And then from here, click finish. And then you have your historian 2, which I just added as a server. So I'm going to be working with the enterprise historian here. So that's setting up the server. So within the server to set up, there's essentially 3 ways you can send data up. The first way would be simple replication. Simple replication gives you the ability, and the name here is very misleading, but it gives you the ability to be able to send full fidelity data up to the enterprise level. So, here I have 2 tags that I have done a simple replication on, and these 2 tags are for temperature. So let me open up these 2 tags on the local machine here, so you can see what they are. So this is one of the tags, right, for temperature. And if you go to the enterprise one, since I've already duplicated or replicated that tag in full fidelity on the enterprise level, I can also pull up the same tag on the enterprise. And that would be this one. Auto-scale it, and you have the exact same data as you do on the first historian. So that's just to show you the simple replication that you can do. Now, what if you have, thousands or millions of tags and you don't want to, duplicate, and you don't really care on the business side about, all of the data points that you need. You only need the summary. You need the statistics of what is going on, since, most business people don't want every single point. So in this case, you have what we call analog and state summary replication. So with analog summary replication, and let me go ahead and actually I'm going to jump back into our PowerPoint here just to show you real quickly. It's a lot better than me trying to explain it. So with analog summary history, you get pre-configured summary data. So all of these are different summary data that you can get from doing a summary history. So you can get the average, the integral, the standard deviations of that, the value count, and I will show you this in query in a little bit. But having all of that data sent to the business layer at the interval that you choose is very crucial. So over here, we also have a state summary history as well. So with state summary, and what state summary does, it helps you analyze the state data of the machine. So within the state summary, as you can see here, you have different state summary with the state time and the total time that value was in. You also get what the count was. So usually for a state, you only have a state of 1 and 0. So with the state of 1 and 0, which is true or false, if you're measuring a pump, whether it's on or off, you can measure how much time that pump was in that state, and then also be able to use that data as you're choosing. So let me jump over here to explain how the value state is measured. So when you measure a value state, you pick a time frame, right? Just say 5 minutes. So what happens if you pick a time frame where you're in the middle of a state? You don't really want the extra data that goes along with that, because you're wondering, what is the minimum for that? So what we do is we do a value state contained, and within that, you can look at just the data of the full state. So if it was in a 1, like the pump, for example, was on, then you'll be able to see just the time that it was on within that time frame that you picked for retrieval. And of course, there's also a round trip contained. The application for this is that if you're looking, for example, in the value state retrieval, the total time in the false state is totalized. So that totalized time is vitally important if you were to want to know the minimum time the state was false, for example. Or another example of it is calculating the minimum and the maximum round trip. Which you be able to see, okay, how long does it take for that machine to go from on to off? So within that, you can set up an analog summary replication here, and the summary replication is up to you. You can create a new replication group. So if you want to schedule something for 1 minute, you can do that. And then once we have a schedule for 1 minute, you can add into that schedule a single tag, for example. So if you want to just pick one single tag, you can find that tag and add it there. So I'm just going to add this tag. So that's how you would add a single tag. If you want to add multiple tags, again, you would just right-click on the 1 minute, add multiple tags. And from here, you can find the same way, but now you can select, multiple tags. So I want to select these two. I just add those two in there and click OK. And then what it's going to do is it's going to check the status of those tags. And then once you close it, it will add the tags to the retrieval. So that would be how you set that up. And then also we have, within this, we also have a state summary replication. Again, the exact same thing you can do here. You can add a new replication group. Call it 1 minute. And then also add the tags. And you can add single or multiple tags. Now, within this tag group, you can also add a couple of different tag types here. You can do analog, you can do string, you can do discrete. I'm just going to do a discrete tag here and add these two. Apply that. All right. So that will summarize the data and send it to the secondary enterprise historian. Now, let's say you don't want to just send the data out. You want to do your own summary of the data. You want to be able to look at that yourself on the floor. When you do your operations. So right here, you can also do what we call local replication, which also lets you replicate the data locally, so that you can also get the same summary data as the enterprise. And to get that, you would just go to the local replication folder here, and you would add a local data. So let me go ahead and commit the pending changes that I made already. That way, it will save the changes and execute. So from here, I can also add data. As you see here, I already have a 5 minutes data that I've added on the local historian. So if I go into my query tool, I can query the analog statistic, analog summary, and have this data available for full retrieval, let's say during the last 30 minutes. You can see I get a data point for every time. You can look at the first date and time and the first value to see where it's actually getting the values from and the time stamp on that, as well as the maximum, the average, the standard deviation, and the integral. So these are extremely useful if you're trying to control a flow for a pump, for example. You don't want you want the average to be at a certain amount, and so the average should be a good indication of what the flow is, and then you can look at the minimum and the maximum value during that 5-minute frame and be able to analyze that as well. The integral will give you the total amount of flow, let's say total amount of water that flows through that pipe during that time frame. So analog data is very useful. Analog summary data is very useful in analyzing what you need. So let me go ahead and jump to Historian Enterprise here and show you the replicated data. So if I jump into my query tool again, this time I'm going to go to the state statistics, which will give me my state summary data. So earlier I did a 1 minute replication. So I have 1 minute data here that I can use. And
hey Tom, just so you know, the buzzing is back, so just be sure to speak loudly, please.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, so right here I have my pump, and I can look at the pump states. As you can see here, I have different values. I have 0 and 1. So within here, I can look at how many times the pump hit that state, where it gives you a state count within that time frame. And then you can also look at what the average time was it was in that state, and how much time it was in that contained state. So as well as the percentage that it was in that state. So you can look at, all of this is done, within the historian database and storage. And so when you query the data, it's there for you. I mean, I haven't done any coding during this. There's no, back-end setup, nothing like that. You can just pull up the query tool and be able to view the data right there. So that is some of the features there for our historian, replicated, enterprise-level historian. And then now let me go ahead and jump over to our PowerPoint here. I have a quick thing I want to show. But before I do that, I also have another VM here that I have set up. And this VM I have set up with the latest and greatest from Wonderware. So if you guys have been paying attention to our releases on our products, Wonderware System Platform 2017 is out. So this is the Historian 2017. If you've seen the video, you've probably saw the retrieval on our Historian and saw that we can do a year's worth of data retrieval within less than a second. So this is this is the reason why we're able to do that. So now we have within the storage partition, instead of doing this is the old way for the 2014, we do a history block of 24 hours to store the data, and that's the standard. That's still there. But now what Wonderware has done is we've also added a 30-day history block to do a summary history of the data. So now when you do a best fit retrieval on trend, it looks into the AutoSummary block, and it pulls data within that one. If you do a 30-day retrieval, it'll just look inside that one block of data and pull 30 days instead of going into 30 blocks and pulling data from 30 days. So this allows us to do long-term retrieval at a much faster rate. So let me go ahead and jump over here to show you a little bit of that. And so the new capability is called AutoSummary, and it does leverage analog summary to reduce the density of the data, and this is all fully automatic on that. So as you can see here, some of the benchmarks that we've done on the 2-core 4-gigabyte virtual machines. 2 weeks worth of data used to take 3 seconds, now it's under a minute. And 12 months used to be, about a minute to a minute and a half. Now it's like under a second as well. So we have that ability to do that, and there's a nice video on YouTube to show that you do that as well. So that pretty much concludes my demo portion. We do have upcoming workshops here in Southern California. We're welcome to come to the workshop and learn about these different topics here. We have a plant reporting one coming up. But you can also stop by the workshop to ask questions about other things. I mean, I'll be there to help answer those questions. And these are the workshops we have in Northern California. Those of you who are looking forward to learn more about Historian, his system platform development workshop here taught in San Francisco next week, it's going to be a great chance for you to do that. All right, and that concludes my presentation. Back to you, Kelly.
Great, thank you, Ton. We do have a few questions that have come in. If you do have questions, you can type them into the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll get those answered for you. The first one is, does Wonderware Historian work with SQL Server 2014?
Yes, so Wonderware supports all the latest in Microsoft. So it works in Windows Server 2016 and SQL Server 2014.
Okay. And then what is the system requirements in terms of hardware needed to use a redundant or enterprise historian?
That's a good question. So one of the things that we do provide here in Wonderware, California is we provide, pretty much free consulting services, right? So it really depends on how much data you're trying to historize, whether or not you have a VM system set up, you're using virtualization, what are the components. So there's a lot of factors that comes into determining, what kind of system hardware you would need. And that's an in-depth discussion that we would love to have with you. All you have to do is reach out to us, and we'll get you the right answer, and we'll help you set up that server.
Okay, great. So I think that wraps up the questions. So thank you, Ton, and thank you, everyone, for attending. This webinar was recorded, so an email will be sent out in an hour or two with the recording of the webinar if you'd like to watch it again or share it with colleagues. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great weekend.